Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. My name is OctoMan, and today we are going to continue. I'm going to continue my Burntime 3D, series over here. So in this case, I'm going to, continue with some items probably in this case. So in the last part, we were talking about scriptable objects and stuff like that, how we can implement them, how can we can make use of them, like based on character creation and how we define different stats and all the other content as well, and also how to access them, how to showcase them in some kind of a user interface whenever necessary. So, but before we're gonna go into the item creation and all that content, I want to once again let you know that down below in the description you can download your free PDF about 3 strategies how to finish your game, and also check out the actual courses I have to offer. These links are going to be down below in the description as well. So let's dive into it. And once again, today I want to talk about items. So in the original Burntime, there are several items. There are usable items and there are consumable items. So in both of these, like one is equipable or even not equipable, and then there are consumables, and there are different ways. Like they're like bottles where you can fill in water, but you can consume only the water but not the bottle. Then we have something like meat, which can be consumed fully and can also produced fully later on with different things. And then we're gonna have also um, what else do we got? We have weapons, for example, which we can equip to, for example, grab more food or even fight our enemies and all the other content over there. So I don't go over everything at the moment. I just start rather small and then we go forward over here as well. Okay, so what would I start with is basically the inventory or the items itself. So we need to define what is an item. Then we're gonna have something like some kind of an inventory list or something which we can pick for items from or read data from and so on and so forth. We can make something like a kind of a library, so we always know what is what and what it is about. And since we have multiple types of items, we're gonna need to define them by using an enum. So we can say this is a consumable item, this is going to be a equipable item, and this is going to be like a like a fill or like a half consumable basically. And since I want to have this like also here, like having this bird time is going to be like my main or my own menu over here, my own assets menu where I can create characters. I'm gonna create another one which is containing all the items over here. So first off, I'm gonna create now a new folder which is going to be everything about our or my items over here. Gonna double click to open and create a new C# script. It's going to be just an item. It's not a specific item, it's like any kind of an item. Once the compiler is done running, we're gonna open, our mono developer Visual Studio over here. So we can actually put in data and design the item itself. Gonna skip my firewall over here. Gonna wait until everything has been loaded completely. And I get rid of start and update since we don't need them or don't use them in our item class. Usually we don't even need the system collection and the current generic, so basically everything which is grayed out can be deleted over here as well. We're gonna do basically the same today as we did with the characters. In this case we are inheriting a scriptable object as we did before, and we want to create an asset menu. So we're gonna open the triangle or no, the square brackets over here and say create asset menu, and then here we can now define a file name as usual as well as a menu name. So I'm gonna type in file name equals, and then we're gonna say something like new item. So that's just the basic name for our next or new item, and then we're gonna have a menu name. So the menu name is basically our burn time subfolder, and then we're gonna put a slash, and then whatever we wanna have here over here. So in this case gonna create just items. So this is now my menu name in my drop down list. Gonna save that, and I'm gonna show you how that looks whenever the compiler is done running. we're gonna right click, create Burntime, and as you can see now we got not just characters but also items. And they are going to be like, once again, as I said before, 3 different types of items. So we can basically create later on another a specific item, which is going to be another type, or basically just another name, but we're gonna inherit item itself, so we still have the possibility to create that. In that case, we probably don't want to create an item itself, so we probably put this in an abstract class. So this class is going to stay on its own, but is never creatable. So we're gonna type in something like abstract class over here, if I have no typos, of course. So if I now save that, we shouldn't have the possibility to create an item directly. So basically the same as we did before, we let the compiler run, we're gonna here by, basically we should not be able to create an item. As you can see, we get a null reference exception over here because we cannot instantiate an abstract item class. Also, to make our life easier, we probably don't want to create an item menu from this one here as well. So we can now say, okay, we don't want to create a direct item class, but we want to create subclasses from the item class. What we want to have inside item itself, we want to have the possibility to set at least the main structure. Like any item which we are going to create will have some kind of an equipment type. And so in this case, or whatever type, like a consumable, a non-consumable, whatever. To do so, we can create a new public enum, and this enum is basically going to hold all the information. I'm gonna name this maybe item type or types. Open close curly, open close, the normal brackets over here. Curly braces, and what we now can fill in is basically any type of item we are going to have later on. So for example, we're gonna have, or I have one which is consumable. Then I have one which is going to be equipable, maybe like that. Maybe I'm gonna have to do 2Ps, I don't know. If I have any typos, just let me know. Otherwise, just write down in the comments. Basically, it doesn't matter. And then we're gonna have something like, it is a, let's say, usable in case of it can be emptied out, but it doesn't get destroyed. So for example, for bottles. And maybe this can also be something for traps. I'm not quite sure about that, but probably a bottle is going to be also of type consumable, but we want to still make sure that the bottle is not, get destroyed later on. So probably we're gonna increment that later on as well. Good, now we have the item class, so within a scriptable object interface, but we want to make sure that we don't create the actual item via this abstract class, so I deleted that. But what we can do is we can basically control D the item script. I'm gonna rename it. I get some errors, but I will fix them in a sec. And then we're gonna have something like a consumable. So consumable item. And what we now can do is we can, of course, open this one up in MonoDevelop or Visual Studio, whatever. And this consumable item will basically later on inherit our item class. This should be possible and still keeps the functionality about that, about the creation type and stuff like that. Let me go in my scripts folder and my items, and I'm gonna just rename this, copy the name, and rename now the class to be this. I don't want this to be an abstract class, just a simple one. And instead of inheriting the scriptable object, I want to inherit item. So I don't need the enum in here because it is not necessary. And in here we're gonna create something like consumable item. It's going to be like my path to create a consumable item, inheriting item, which is going to be abstract and not able to instantiate or anything, or just initialize or create a new one. It's just not possible. So what we now have, whenever we save that and everything is correct and the compiler runs, clear the console, go to Burntime, consumable item, and now I can create just an empty class with a consumable item inside. What I cannot see at the moment is the enum inside my consumable item. The enum basically which I created over here, so probably I cannot make use of the abstract class, but I don't think that is the reason for that. Maybe I need to put the item type. Oh, I opened the wrong one. Probably I need to put this outside of the class, so it's not going to be inside scriptable object in this case. So it's basically accessible from any point, but I'm not quite sure actually. So maybe it is because of the abstract class. So maybe I don't go and make use of that and just test again. I mean, it doesn't really matter if we got this or not. Well, there is no item or no enum accessible over here. That's a bit strange actually. So let's try to figure why that is the case. Gonna put this like outside. But that means, oh, I know why. So that is correct inside this class. In the consumable item, of course, we need to define an equipment type. So in this case, we'll say a public equipment, like what is it called? Item types. So new public item types, and we can just name this one something like type. So now we have a connection to the actual item types enum, which is sitting in our scriptable object, like in the base class of every item we are going to create in the future. So whenever we now go back and want to check this new item I created, which is going to be of type consumable, I can now check which type of this item is going to be, even if I don't have the connection directly to the item itself. So I just created a, just a parameter for this, like just a, the property or whatever it's called. So now with that said, I can now create multiple things over here, or I can directly set a specific item type to be on a specific type of items. In this case, I can say, okay, this new item, because I created a consumable one, is going to be set automatically to be a consumable one. I believe that should be working over there. So in this case, I should be able to set this one to be equal to item types dot consumable, because that's what it is about. And usually we shouldn't even or not necessarily have to put this as a public parameter, but we could basically say something like serialized field, so we can still see it, but it's still protected, so we can basically we are not able to change that back and forth over here. So we set this over here. I'm not quite sure if we are able to still select it. Okay, we are. Maybe I didn't save it correctly over here, but it doesn't really matter, I guess. So with that out of the way, we are able now to select any type of this item. So we can already set this one at start. So whenever we create another one, we can also set this one like by default over here, or we just get rid of the serialized field, so we cannot touch or even change that type. So the type is always going to be fixed, if necessary in any case. So what can we do now? Each item needs to have a connection to a prefab, so we can, or an image, for example, like if depends on how I gonna go do this in the future. I created some bottles and stuff like that in 3D space already. Probably I'm gonna render these out like being just images as the preview for our characters, for example. We can probably do something like that as well, but we can also do anything, any different things, like we can put this on an item, render this in lifetime anywhere, without any background, for example. And then we just showcase these ones like as a live preview inside our game. So maybe both, or actually both should work in this case. So to do so, we want to define that directly in our item class, because this is going to be our main class basically. So we're gonna create a new public, public sprite. So this is going to be like our, item sprite, whatever, like so. So we can always preview that as we already did in our character over here. We're gonna have an icon over here as well. So we basically do the same for the items here as well. Of course, we're gonna later on have some different possibilities to interact with items, like for example adding them to somewhere, or activating or deactivating them based on whatever the type of the item is going to be. And we can literally put this into different possibilities here as well. What we now should be able to is we should have access to this item sprite over here. Oh, and by the way, this should not even be necessary at this point. We basically just need to define this inside the item class, like over here. So we just create a new type, and we can put like the public field in here. We get rid of that from the consumable type, because usually it shouldn't be even necessary to put this over there. But we should still see that over here, as well as the sprite in a sec. Well, hopefully. If I did not forget to save. So we should see a sprite slot, as well as the type right now. So as you can see now, I can still, even if that is a consumable item, we can see this always over here. This is a consumable item. We can set it still to any type, but we preset everything about that inside the item class itself. So just as a placeholder, still our consumable item class is basically empty. So what can we do now, or what can we do next with that? Once again, we can now put a preview image or something like that, and we can connect it to, let's say, a prefab, where we can pick things up or just hide and unhide, or instantiate in runtime onto a specific position, as an example. So we can do something like public game object, and then we can put our item prefab, like so. And later on, we're going to make sure that this item, like the scriptable object, is going to hold this information. We can drop the game object on the ground if we want to, as well as show the sprite or whatever we want, and we make it selectable or anything like that over the next couple of lessons, or the next couple of, stuff we are going to create over here. So a game object will be seen here as well in a second. So we can now put in any prefab, any sprite, like a pre-rendered sprite or whatever, or just a created one, or just a whatever sprite about the item itself. And then we're gonna change it to whatever it is, like our bottle or food, and so on and so forth. So what we now want to do is we basically create 2 more of these. Like, we're gonna have equipable items for a knife, as well as a usable, probably is going to be a bottle. A consumable is something like a maggot. So what we're gonna do is we can also later on rename them over here. But for now I wanna create just 2 more item types. So this one is going to be now our usable item. Or consumable we're gonna have already. Usable item, like maybe a trap or maybe a bottle, is going to be usable, as I said before. As well as we create another one, which is going to be equipable. Equipable item, like that. So once the compiler is done running, we're gonna see the inspector is going to change, and we're gonna open one of these, like usable or even equipable. Basically, we're gonna work on both anyways. Gonna wait for my firewall over here. Get rid of start and update, and basically just put the content I have copied like everything over already, but instead of using the consumable one, and we're gonna derive from item over here, from the item class, and this is now going to be an equipable item. We're gonna save that. Once again, we need to inherit item, otherwise it doesn't work. And I go and open my solution again and go to my usable item, open this one, get rid of start and update as well. Can basically put everything above it, so Control V to copy and paste. Gonna put this one into, once again, the item class and name this one here a usable item. Good. Now I'm gonna save that again. What we now can do is we can easily right click and create new items, hundreds or even thousands of items, by just go here to the menu. Currently I only have the consumable item here in the list, so I believe I need to wait for the compiler first. Now I go in here and now we're gonna have the consumable item, the equipable item, or even the usable item. So we can create either of these and set the type to be whatever the type is. Once again, we can also make it so that we are setting that already at start, so we don't need to, take care of that at the or later on. So the next one, what I want to have is, or what I had is, I created a bottle with some fluid inside. So just some insert or inset part. I'm gonna have a faucet where we can later on grab water from. I created some simple knife. Once again, I just created simple models, and I created something which is, should be my maggot for the moment. So what I want to create is like these items as prefabs, as well as if I want to, I can directly create screenshots over here, like, I don't know, this way or anyhow, and make sure that I create sprites out of these screenshots over here, like basically for the knife. I can rotate it in any way, I can light it up. Gonna bring this into a more light scene, and then I'm gonna put stuff together. For the bottle, for example, you can always, put stuff in your scene and go out of 2D mode. As you can see, there's no light in my scene, which is totally fine at the moment. But what I can define is basically two materials which are going to, tint my bottle. And both are going to be transparent materials. So I go over here and create a new one, new material. And this is going to be, the first one is my, let's say, bottle. I'm gonna maybe name it glass. And then I create another one. You can also duplicate it. This is going to be my fluid from the bottle. So basically, maybe it's water, since I have another water material later on there as well. I'm gonna change the type to be transparent type, so we're gonna have the possibility to see through. And we're gonna be able to tint this in any bluish color maybe, and reduce alpha just a bit, maybe like that. So my fluid now gets water. Now I'm gonna be able to change the material about the bottle itself, so that's glass. Basically, I can use the same. Gonna change that to transparent over here and reduce the alpha quite a bit, and put the glass material onto the bottle. So once again, this is currently not lit up, but you can see now I have two materials on the bottle, a transparent one on the outside and a transparent one in the inside. Once I'm done with that, at least for the moment, I can bring this into my prefabs folder, but I don't have one, so I'm gonna create one folder. Let's say item prefabs, or just prefabs at the first place, and then I create subfolders for that. I'm gonna rename this to multiple prefabs. Maybe gonna say something like folder items, because that is at the moment the only prefabs we gonna need. And then I just drag my bottle into here and say I want to create an original. And as you can see, rendered out, like over here in the preview, it looks even more different to our scene over there. If I now go into one of my place scenes, like in area 001, I'm gonna save that. Well, I shouldn't maybe. And I'm gonna be anywhere on the scene, and I'm gonna put my bottle now, my prefab item bottle, anywhere on the ground. Gonna drag it around and see where it is. Gonna see that it is completely looking different now. So it's like fully lit, it looks transparent, as well as it has water inside. If I later on want to water or empty out the bottle, I just disable the game object, the fluid, So I can simply enable and disable these objects, or for this particular bottle. So the bottle later on will have an empty state and a full state. So we're gonna be able to empty this one out if necessary, or even give it like the amount of water, whatever it can contain. So I'm rather happy with the look of the bottle, at least for the moment. And what I can now, once again now do is I can render this one out or make a screenshot over here of the bottle, which, or when it is like filled and when it is like empty. So basically the same, you know, so I can literally go and open the prefab, make a screenshot from here, or disable just the fluid like this, go back into the preview mode over there whenever we leave this prefab mode, and so the basically the fluid is empty. But as you can see, it probably is quite a hard, or not so easy to find the correct rotation later on in this viewer. So both are going to look the same. So probably I'm gonna find a way later on to make it a bit more precise. So for now I just take what I get. I'm gonna make a screenshot from this with my snipping tool, like here. And probably I try to be as precise as possible. You can later on go into Photoshop or wherever you please and like, and just make the best out of your screenshot from your empty bottle. So now I wanna just save that. Gonna go and put this into my game folder where my game is inside, like for all my textures. I'm gonna do this off screen, so bear with me. Gonna put now empty bottle and save that. Maybe I'm gonna put this now onto my other screen, or maybe over here. I'm gonna go open the prefab just again, re-enable fluid, and leave this. I'm gonna check this now again and try to find, maybe the water is a bit too less over here in case of alpha. Maybe I'm gonna increase alpha quite a bit more for the bottle water. And what I can now do is I can once again go into the prefabs folder, items, bottle, and make another screenshot so we can literally see the bottle itself. And probably I'm gonna take my snipping tool and try to figure the rotation out over here, and probably it is something like that. I'm not quite sure. Once again, you want to make this to be as precise as possible, of course. So take my snipping tool over here, create another kind of square. Once again, you should go and be more precise later on. Gonna save that as a filled bottle image basically. So gonna bring this over here and name this filled bottle PNG. Gonna save and can close my snipping tool, and in my textures folder I now have the empty bottle and the filled bottle. Anyhow, this gets half the size. That's pretty strange. Let's see if we can do something. Oh, there we go. So I don't know why that got stretched, because default seemed to half the size of that. So they are kind of close, as you can see, kind of close with my screenshots over here. So what I can now do is I can take one or the other screenshot and put this like directly in one of our items we have created. So this is a consumable, so for the moment I just delete it. And I want to create now a usable item, I guess. Gonna name this bottle. Of course, there are some things we need to take in consideration later on, which are based on the type of the item. And we can now have or probably we're gonna have like a usable or an empty state and a full state on this item. And then we're gonna be able to put this like over here as well. So we basically have two sprites we can, if we want to and if we need to, put inside over there. To do so, we basically just need to create like two item sprites over here, or because the usable item, or in this case, the usable item might have a secondary sprite, we're gonna be able to make use of that as well. So I copy this, bring this in usable item. I'm gonna name this something like, well, not item sprite because it's overriding the other one. In this case, it would be a, let's say, full or used or unused. I'm not quite sure. So maybe something like an unused sprite. So whenever it is in a full state, full state. There are multiple things we need to consider later on for usables, depending on how we are actually handling those usables. So usables, once again, are going to be bottles, which can have like two states later on, like full or empty. Maybe I'm gonna split the sprite thing about that later on again. So I'm gonna have like per each item different possibilities for those sprites, depending on the item type, of course. So as you can see now, I have an item sprite and I have an unused sprite over here. So an unused is basically the full bottle, and a normal item sprite will be the empty bottle. And what I can do is I just take the empty bottle over here and the filled bottle over there. And now we do basically the same as we had done before. So when my player has equipped or just in its inventory is going to have one of these items, we're going to be able to see what state it is, we're going to have to check this out, of course, but also we need to create the inventory as well as all the inventory slots for the characters, so we can literally just later on drag in all our scriptable objects we need in whatever state they are, and probably give it an ID or something to make sure we're gonna have the correct ones, and then we're gonna put the data back and forth between the world as well as between the world and the inventory, or even inside buildings. Speaking of buildings, I go into my area 001 B01 here, and I want to place a faucet over here. So I created one a 3D model about it, and just drag it anywhere and see where it is, and of course place it in front of the camera. What is that? I don't know. So this faucet will show us later on that we have a possibility to get water from this scene. So we have the possibility once again to grab water over here, and also later on I want to create something like small slots, which are literally giving us the space or the idea to place items over here. Like I'm gonna do something like a 2D grid system or something similar, where I'm going to be place items on the ground. For example, we could now place a knife inside the scene wherever we want to. Whenever we click it, we are able to grab it from the ground. So in that case, we would open our inventory and have like two possibilities. In this case, of course, we're gonna open a world space inventory, like on the right side, as I explained in the last video, and as well as on the left side, we're gonna have our own inventory, so we can literally put things into the scene, but also to grab away stuff which is going to be inside. So for example, I can put my knife anywhere in the scene, something like that, and later on I should be able to, I will implement the functionality about it, so we are able to pick this knife up whenever we enter the scene. We can also make it anywhere. We can also place this literally wherever we want to. We can click on it, we open the inventory and grab all the possible items from the world space inventory, or we're gonna keep them in here, depends on how we're gonna do this in the end. So, and what I want to achieve later on is that when there is a source of water inside the scene, that we are able to take, for example, one of our bottles and put them, like, from our prefabs, of course, we're going to be able to place them inside this room, anywhere. Of course, it needs to be close to the faucet, so we can see this later on with the camera. So whenever we come in and see, oh nice, there's a bottle, we can pick it up, and we can see, is it full, is it not full. Same for the faucet itself. We're going to be able to not just fill bottles inside the room, because this is like a something for where water comes out. We also want to make sure that the this one gets filled over one day. For example, if the faucet creates a ratio of 2 water per day or 1 water per day, then we want to fill up our bottle by the amount of water the bottle can actually maximum hold, as well as we're gonna store something like in this little driplet over there, or this little, yeah, whatever, and make sure that we can also drink this if we have to. And then we place our empty bottles in here, and this will fill over time, like once a day, or each day it's going to fill up as long as the bottle is inside this particular scene. We also need to later on find a way to store the information of what items are going to be inside the scene. So, but that's going to be something we're gonna need to take care of later on. At the moment, it's just not important. Good, so with that out of the way, later on I'm gonna go and create another prefab over here. I'm gonna save the scene because I've done some changes. And where do we go next? We go to our main area 1 again here and see if I have done any mistakes or forgot something to delete. Nope, I don't. So once again, whenever we are now moving inside this building, we should be able to see that the bottle is going to stand there. Of course, we need to make sure that our main scene is loaded, otherwise we cannot do this. And the main scene currently contains bottle, so I'm gonna delete it from there. Gonna save scene and try again. And now I can go inside the scene actually and see, okay, there is a bottle which we can pick up, as well as this faucet, which is going to give us later on once again the possibility to fill things up, and so on and so forth. Good. And that's basically everything for now. We now need to find a way to actually create everything about the inventory system itself. So how can we do pickups, how can we add them together, and so on and so forth. For example, where is my scenes folder? In my main scene, we're gonna have our game manager. So he's managing everything about what we currently have, what items do we have picked up, and later on we also want or need him to store the items in different areas. So we basically connect all the areas anyhow, I guess, with our game manager, because he always has to know that information. So we're gonna put like multiple lists for multiple areas, put like everything, like all items we have stored anywhere, or just numbers, and whenever we enter these areas, it fill up the areas automatically by prefabs of the corresponding items which are going to sit inside the area. Once again, this is content we gonna go and take a look into later on. So what we need is basically now a system which is holding or has the possibility to hold all the items. First, we can connect this directly to our character, or we're gonna create just a list of items, and then we show them inside of some kind of item slots onto, for example, our character window over here. But each item slot, of course, needs to have a connection to all these items to hold. And that's what we're going to take care probably in the next video, because everything is prepared for that. So that is basically everything I wanted to discover today. So I'm gonna have like multiple 3D objects I can implement. I can give them the type, can create a prefab. Oh, and by the way, if we are inside our items folder and we got the bottle over here, we can also go to the prefabs folder, items, wait, need to go into items again, bottle, then go to items and take the bottle as a item prefab over here. So I have always a connection to a bottle image basically, or to a bottle prefab. So whenever we have that and we want to place this in our scene, we can do so. And of course, later on we need to store something like an ID or something, so we can take a look into what is that bottle, which number does it have, and where is it actually located at the moment inside our complete game. Like, is it in whichever room, or is it in the inventory of our character, and so on and so forth. But once again, that's basically everything I wanted to discover today. So just once again about scriptable objects, we want to make sure that we have like all our items later on set it up. So I can do this already because I have multiple things already set it up over there. Like my maggot can go onto one, and my knife can go onto one, as well as the other one. So how do we do this? Once again, this setting is now super simple. We can also put like consumables and stuff like that, items over here as well. So I'm gonna make use of a consumable item, for example. I don't have a sprite of my maggot, so I'm gonna create one, but I can name it maggot. I go to my 3D models folder and drag my maggot over here into the scene. It's quite slow or quite small at the moment. It doesn't have any color except this white grayish color tint over here. At the moment it doesn't really matter at all. We can also put like multiple maggots into one game object, basically to have like multiple in one spot, if this is not enough, I would say. And then we want to make sure that we create a prefab from that inside our items folder, like so. Gonna apply that. And now I have this. Okay, now once again create a screenshot of that with my snipping tools. Everybody has that, so make use of it. Nope, I'm gonna try again. Gonna try to make it kinda squarish. Kind of. And gonna save this, of course, as well here in my little in my folder maggot. Save. And now I can basically go into my items maggot and give it now the sprite of the maggot. So but now it's not defined as a sprite, so we need to do this. Maggot, gonna go here and say sprite to the UI, apply the changes, and put now this maggot now can be deleted from the scene. It's not necessary anymore. Go to items, maggot, go to textures, bring the sprite into the sprite slot, and go to items prefabs and drag the maggot prefab over there. And that's basically how we can super simple and super easy define different types. Of course, this is going to be a type consumable, and our bottle item is going to be not a consumable but a usable item, because once again you can also see this on the script number or on the script name. And so we're gonna handle now different, or later on we're gonna handle these types a bit different. So for example, we're gonna eat it, we're gonna delete it completely from our inventory. If we are basically drinking empty or using our bottle, we're gonna be able to keep this bottle inside the inventory, but we deactivate or change the sprite of it, like from a filled bottle to an empty bottle, like from the unused sprite to the normal sprite, and so on and so forth. And also we're gonna change that directly later on in the prefab, like whenever our bottle is empty, and then we're gonna change it basically to different like two different types or states. Like we disable the secondary item, like the fill itself, like the fluid which is going to be inside the bottle at the moment. We're gonna enable and disable that based on the setting over here. Once again, this is basically everything we just need at the moment, or I just need at the moment. So I want to prepare the knife as well, because this is going to be my last and an equipable item in that case. So I go here, create a new Burntime equipable item. This is going to be my knife. So we can make use of that in two possibilities. First off, we can fight enemies with the knife if we got one, or we're gonna put this into a room and it can create maggots for us, like it's peeling it out of somewhere. So that's the first thing. Then the next one is going to be, we need a prefab from this. So I'm gonna create one. Go to my 3D models, take my knife. Currently it's a bit dark, so probably I create new materials from that, or just extract the current ones. Like extract materials. I'm gonna store them in my materials folder. I'm gonna wait a sec. And then here there's a, what do we got? We have a metal, which should be, you know, super smooth, and maybe something in the middle over here, so a bit metallic. So the knife should later on look kind of good whenever it comes to this state. And then we're gonna have the grip. Basically the grip is just something brownish, I guess. I don't know yet. Basically it doesn't matter. We can change again the design and stuff later on to our needs. Of course, I want to make sure that I put my knife into my prefabs folder. So this is now the actual result. It's okay-ish, nothing fancy, no worries about it. Once again, design comes later. We want to make sure that we have everything in place. Can now get rid of the knife from the scene. I go to my items folder over here, select the knife, and drag now from my items the knife prefab. And now I finally need a script, or not a script, but a sprite from my knife. So again, go items, prefab, knife, select it. I probably can also rotate it a bit different. I don't know, maybe I can pan it around or just orbit around it. Doesn't seem so, but actually it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna make just a screenshot from that. Once again, later on you want to render out all of these and so on and so forth. Gotta make sure that I try to make it kinda squarish. Oh, let's try again. We're gonna start here. Nope. Again. Maybe something like that. And gonna store this again in my textures folder where the other ones are inside already. Gonna put this on my other screen. Knife. And save that. Can close this and go to my textures. Select the knife image. Make sure it is a sprite to the UI. Apply the changes. And now go into my scripts, items, knife. Select the knife sprite and put this into my usable item, and in this case it's not a consumable but an equipable. So once again the knife gets handled now later on different, so we can literally do two things. We can equip it as a weapon again, so we think about the inputs later on about it, and we are also able to drag it or put this into the world space, like to once again carve out food for us to generate. And yeah, that concludes everything about these items basically. In the next part, I believe we're gonna start with the inventory itself, so we can literally put something on the ground or even put this into our inventory, see how things goes and how we can, you know, fill up water into our water bottles, and also how we pick them up and bring them into the inventory of the character, put them into the world space inventory, and so on and so forth, and basically, yeah, handle all that things over some slots and so on and so forth. So that is going to be part of the next one. I still hope, even if we didn't really did much today, we just created once again these scriptable objects, but that is the base of everything at the moment, so that's why that is so important to create over here. Everything else already started. We're gonna also later on start to work on the inventory itself, so where we can put all the scriptable objects or the item types inside of a list and manage them from that point as an example. So basically everything will be held in Game Manager, so we have an item list or equipped list probably in the Game Manager and not directly related to the character. I don't know, we're gonna see that whenever we are, you know, going forward. Or we're gonna once again have an extra inventory which is handled like separately from the character. Basically it doesn't really matter, I guess, but we'll see. Good. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to thumb this video up or this live stream up. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to check out the description box down below where you can download your free PDF about 3 strategies to finish your game. Also check out the description box for multiple courses I have to offer, so if you want to learn something new today or even tomorrow, feel free to check them out and join me in course. Thanks a lot again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I see you, hopefully, in the next session about how to create Burntime 3D in Unity.